At least 39 people have died and 9 are missing after torrential downpours triggered deadly flash floods and landslides across much of the country.
집중호우로 전국 각지에 돌발 홍수와 산사태가 발생하면서 지금까지 최소 39명의 사망자와 9명의 실종자가 집계됐습니다. The first expression we want to look at from this headline is torrential downpours.
Torrential downpours. So torrent is the base word or the root word of torrential. And a torrent is a violent or kind of rapid stream of usually water, some sort of liquid. You could say torrent of lava, perhaps, as well. But in this case, we're talking about rain. And of course, downpour is heavy rain. So in a way, this is a bit redundant, this expression, right? Torrential downpour means just heavy rain.
Right. You can imagine a lot of rain just pouring down. 그게 바로 이제 집중호우 torrential downs가 되겠고요. The second expression is trigger.
Trigger. So here as a verb, when you trigger something, it means something is set off or initiated, precipitated, perhaps, you know. It's the cause of something. Normally as a noun, trigger is the little mechanism on a gun where you pull and that initiates the bullet to fire out of the firearm.
Right, exactly. So you make something happen, you trigger it. 촉발시키다 내지는 발생시키다가 되겠습니다.
A new study shows that Korea still lags behind other OECD member countries on work-life balance, despite a social climate that increasingly values such balance for a healthier and productive lifestyle.
국내에서 일과 삶의 균형을 추구하는 사회적 분위기가 갈수록 강해지고 있음에도 불구하고 한국의 소위 워라밸 수준은 경제협력개발기구 타 회원국들에 비해 여전히 뒤처져 있다는 연구 결과가 최근 나왔습니다. 우리가 워라밸이라고 많이 하는데 이거 진짜 이제 영어에서 쓰는 표현을 줄인 거죠.
It's a bit Konglish, right? Well, actually, it is Konglish, I think, right?
What's the actual term?
Right. Work-life balance, just as it says, it's how you divide or balance time between work and activities outside of work.
Exactly. Work-life balance 이게 원래 표현이고요. 영어에서는 it's just 4 syllables.
Work-life balance.
Or is it just
4?
4, right? Yeah, 그렇죠. 이제 4번의 음절로 발음이 되는 건데 이거 한글로 쓰다 보면 워크-라이프 밸런스 이렇게 너무너무 음절이 많아지다 보니까 확 줄여서 워라밸 우리가 하긴 하는데 영어에서는 이렇게 줄이지 않습니다. We just say work-life balance. And what about social climate?
Social climate, yeah, that's sort of the prevailing attitudes, standards, or the environmental conditions of a society at the time. So the social climate. We were talking about the weather a lot of times, but when we talk about the social climate, it's what society is. Kind of the mood in the society. You can also talk about political climate. The political climate is very divisive right now, for instance. So here, the social climate, work-life balance is a very hot key term right now in Korean society. So the social climate the tendency is that Korea is moving more towards achieving work-life balance.
Exactly. 분위기라는 뜻으로 climate를 썼죠. Although, as you said, normally when we think climate, we think of the weather.
Right.
But in this case, we're talking about the mood. The social climate는 사회적인 분위기가 되겠습니다.
The Ministry of Education has announced that the previously subscription-based online education course, EBS Middle School Premium, will be provided free of charge starting today.
교육부는 중학생용 유료 구독 온라인 교육 서비스인 EBS 중학 프리미엄 강좌를 오늘부터 무료로 전환한다고 발표했습니다. 자, 그러니까 기존에는 유료 구독 기반이었다. It was previously subscription-based.
Right. So previously means it used to be in the past. When something is subscription-based, it means it's for pay.
Yeah.
As opposed to being free of charge. So a subscription is a sum of money pledged as a payment. So when I think of subscription, I think of magazines.
Right.
Which people don't really read anymore, but you would subscribe to a magazine, and a 12-month subscription you would get once a month if it's a monthly publication. Or these days, a more current example would be on
streaming sites.
Streaming sites,
Yeah.
exactly, where you subscribe to a streaming site for X number of dollars or won per month. So you are pledging or promising to pay a certain amount for a certain service.
Subscription-based. 구독 기반, previously. 이전에는 이랬던 것이 now it will be provided free of charge.
Right. So if it's provided free of charge, it's given free. Basically, that's the only way to really explain this as a perk or, on the house, no cost. Free of charge is a funny expression because I think it's it probably comes from legalese. It's more lawyer-based talk where you would say free of charge, but you would just say something's free.
Free, yeah.
Right? So, but you hear this a lot, for example, in restaurants, like I mentioned. This is free of charge. Here,
Yeah.
dessert is on us. It's on the house.
It's on the house.
In Konglish, you would say it's service, right? But if you say so if you say free of charge, it means exactly what it means. It's free.
Yeah, it's free. Yes, exactly. 무료라는 의미로 free of charge. 그냥 free라고 해도 무료가 되겠습니다. It will be provided free of charge starting today.
Indonesia is expected to lose its position as the world's second largest natural rubber exporter as production continues to decline due to climate change and various tree disease outbreaks.
세계 2위의 천연 고무 수출국인 인도네시아가 기후변화와 각종 나무 질병 등으로 인해 생산량이 계속해서 줄어들자 이대로라면 세계 2위의 지위도 잃을 것으로 보인다는 전망이 나왔습니다. It's going to lose its position as something.
Yeah, your position here would be your status or your standing in some sort of ranking, perhaps. So if you lose that position, typically it would mean that you're going in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
in a negative way. So Indonesia has gone down in its standing in terms of rubber production here.
Exactly. Lose its position. 지위를 잃다. And position can mean many things in different ways, but in this case, as you said, it's a sort of standing where you are in this list.
Or if you take this literally,
Yeah.
If you lose your position as the president of a company,
Oh, yeah.
for example, that means you lost your job. But
Right.
here it's a little different meaning. It's not the literal meaning.
Right.
It's talking about a ranking.
A ranking. 그래요. 여기서는 어떤 순위를 얘기하고 있죠. And to continue to decline.
Right. To decline, we've covered this many times, but it means to decrease or to lower. But if it continues to decline, that means you get this sense that something is ongoing. It's happening. It's almost like it's ing, right? As
Yeah.
they would say. So it continues to decline. There's a trend of Indonesia losing its position in the rankings.
Continue to do something. 계속해서 감소한다라는 의미로 여기서 썼는데 이제 계속해서 continue to blah 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 뭐 이렇게 얘기할 수 있겠죠. Continue to increase 그러면 계속해서 증가하다가 될 텐데요.
Korean nationals with a valid driver's license will soon be eligible to drive in Vietnam with an international driving permit issued in Korea under a bilateral pact that goes into effect on July 23rd.
한국과 베트남이 체결한 양국 간 국제 운전면허증 상호 인정 협정이 이달 23일부터 발효됨에 따라 이제 곧 우리 국민도 국내에서 발급받은 운전면허증으로 베트남에서 차량을 운전할 수 있게 됩니다. All right, so the first term to look at here is to be eligible to do something.
To do something. So if you're eligible to do something, you meet the requirements or you're qualified to do something. So for example, you're eligible to drink alcohol in Korea at the age of 19 under the current age. I don't know
so.
what the current
I
rules
think so,
are. It's
yeah.
confusing. But when you're eligible to do something, you're allowed to do it. You're permitted to do it.
그렇죠. 예, 뭐뭐 할 자격이 있다. You're allowed to do it. Be eligible to do something. Now, it says here, of course, if you have a valid driver's license, you will now be eligible to drive in Vietnam
Yep.
with an international driver's license issued in Korea. And this is all under a bilateral pact.
Right. So this is being allowed because there was an agreement between both Korea and Vietnam. So both sides have agreed to allow this. Hence, this is a bilateral pact,
Yeah.
PACT, an agreement or some sort of treaty, usually between two countries. So here, both sides have agreed to this.
Exactly. Bilateral. So we can think of a bicycle, for example, something that has two things in it.
Right? BI, the
그렇죠.
prefix.
네, 그래서 이제 두 나라 간의라는 뜻으로 bilateral. 이게 만약에 이제 3개국이었으면 trilateral.
Trilateral, quadrilateral, I'm assuming. Or at that point, you could just say multilateral, right?
그렇죠.
Or if one side is just doing it without the other side's permission, it's unilateral.
Unilateral.
Right? Usually how parents deal with children, unilateral orders, right?
일방적으로 뭔가 할 때는
Sure.
이제 unilateral이라고 하고요.
No room for negotiation.
Yeah, exactly. And you can even use the word uni for cycles as well. So a unicycle is like a bicycle, but it has only one wheel.
One wheel, right.
Do you know how to ride a unicycle?
I do not. I've
Nor
never
do I.
tried. I feel like I could.
Really?
But,
You think so?
I don't think
With
it's
good
an
balance?
efficient form of transportation. So it's great for the circus.
Yes, exactly. 그래요. uni는 하나, bi는 두 개, tri는 세 개. 그 이후에는 보통 그냥 multi로 많이 갑니다. 그래서 다자간에 이렇게 얘기할 때는 multilateral something. A pact is an agreement. 여기서 협정, 조약이라는 의미죠.
Major foreign news outlets have highlighted the damage and recovery efforts from heavy rains that have hit Korea since last week, adding that climate change has increased the likelihood of extreme weather events in East Asia.
지난주 우리나라를 강타한 폭우 피해와 수습 상황을 주요 외신이 중점 보도하면서 기후변화로 동아시아에서 극단적인 기상현상이 일어날 가능성이 커졌다고 덧붙였습니다. The first expression here is to highlight something. And I'm thinking of a highlighter.
I was thinking the same thing.
Okay.
Right. Wait, do you just call it highlighter in Korean?
형광펜.
Okay. So when you do that, though, when you use that, you're marking something in a book or
Yeah.
textbook or on a piece of paper that's really important. So you're trying to call more attention to that or to
Exactly.
remind yourself, oh, I better pay closer attention to
Exactly.
this when I review it again. So that's what it means to highlight something. You call attention to it. You emphasize the story or you publicize it
Yeah.
as media outlets do.
Emphasizing, publicizing. Did you use highlighters a lot when you were studying?
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
student,
sure,
yeah?
sure.
그래요. 우리도 이제 공부했을 때 형광펜으로 밑줄 쫙 긋고 이제 그런 적이 많이 있죠. 그 영어로는 highlighter라고 합니다. 그 펜 자체를. So to highlight something means you're stressing it,
Yes,
emphasizing it.
stressing. yeah.
강조하다. And what about extreme weather events?
Exactly as they sound. These are more severe weather phenomenons, right? So, and a lot of times this can be weather that's unexpected or even unseasonal. So it's getting hotter. It's really, really hot sooner than it normally should be, or earlier than we'd normally expect. So these weather events, this can be a lot of different things: rain, storms, typhoons, landslides, heat waves, cold snaps, whatever. But if it's more severe and not really expected, we can call it an extreme weather event.
Extreme weather event, 극단적인 기상 현상을 말합니다.
The number of people living in Seoul declined by nearly 770,000 over the past decade, marking the largest drop among the country's 17 municipalities during the period.
지난 10년간 서울의 인구가 77만 명 가까이 줄어들었으며 17개 지자체 중 가장 큰 폭으로 감소한 것으로 나타났습니다. Right, so let's look at declining.
Declining, decreasing,
Yeah.
going down. You can talk about a lot of things declining.
Exactly. And declining and decreasing, as you just said, they're similar, but maybe not the same, depending on how
In
you
this
use
case,
it.
it's the same.
Ah, okay.
But you can also use decline to someone offers you something and you decline the offer. You wouldn't say, I decrease the offer.
Of course.
So that's where you could use it differently. And it's like a very polite, sophisticated way to say no. Someone offers, you can use this a lot in business writing or, verbally in a business meeting. One side makes an offer and say, we're going to have to we're going to have to decline your offer. We politely decline.
Exactly. Instead of just saying no.
Right.
Because that's too blunt.
Exactly.
Yeah. Declining an offer, 뭔가 거절할 때 많이 쓰기도 하는데요. Decline이라는 게 이제 줄어들다, 감소하다의 의미가 있죠. Decrease랑 매우 비슷합니다. Although decrease is more of a general term, and you wouldn't say decrease when you're saying no. The other term here is municipality.
Right, and I'm not actually sure if this is used correctly in this case. This was used in all the English articles about this.
Okay.
Because municipalities have different meanings in different countries. So when they talk about 17 municipalities in Korea, they're actually talking about administrative divisions.
Yeah, the big cities.
So you've got 9 provinces,
And provinces,
too. The
yeah.
provinces are included. So
Yeah.
like in just my province in Canada, just my province, there are over 440 municipalities.
Got it.
So that's why when I read this, it doesn't make sense to me.
I see.
Because municipalities are just towns or cities
Right.
that have a local government
Right.
and provide services to the people who live in that area.
So each city could actually have many municipalities in it, although in this headline, the term municipality refers to the big cities or the big provinces.
You've got the 9 provinces, 6 metropolitan cities, the 1 special city, Seoul,
yeah.
and the 1 special self-governing city. That
Jeju,
makes up
yeah.
your 17.
Exactly. 그래요. 여기서 municipality는 그러니까 이게 뭐 서울시, 뭐 부산광역시, 뭐 경기도, 인천 등등의 그런 이제 지자체를 얘기하고 있는 것이죠. But sometimes municipalities can refer to the smaller group.
The smallest government.
Yes, that's right.
Smallest level of government.
Not in this case, though.
No.
Okay, so it can be a little bit confusing, but that's what it means here.
Right, it was confusing to me
Yeah,
when I
no,
read
I
it because I
understand.
understand municipality
I had
differently.
to do a reread as well, actually,
Sure.
when I first read
Right.
it.
Strong sandstorms have engulfed Iran's southeastern province, sending more than 1,000 people to seek medical treatment over breathing difficulties and heart and eyesight issues.
이란 남부 지역이 모래 폭풍으로 휩싸이면서 1,000명 이상이 호흡기, 심혈관, 안과 계통의 증세를 호소하며 병원 치료를 받고 있습니다. 휩싸이다 이거를 한번 볼까요? This is the first expression, be engulfed.
Engulfed, think about it as being covered in something. In this case, the sand would have just completely swept over this province. We use engulfed a lot if a building is on fire. We say it is engulfed in flames.
Exactly.
That's where you'll hear it the most.
Yesterday we learnt with Shane that with news headlines it's better to go with the active voice than the passive voice. So you
Okay.
have strong sandstorms have engulfed instead of saying Iran's southern province has been engulfed.
Sure.
So this is another thing just to keep in mind for our listeners who are studying with the news. 그래서 보다시피 이제 수동태 말고 능동태로 헤드라인을 쓴다는 걸 알 수 있죠. 그래서 우리말로는 이제 이란 남부 지역이 휩싸였다 이런 수동태로 시작이 됐고 이제 우리식이니까요. 이렇게 말하지만 영어식으로는 능동태를 쓰는 게 훨씬 더 일반적입니다. 그래서 strong sandstorms have engulfed Iran's southern province 이렇게 표현을 하고 있어요. 휩싸인 것의 주체 I can't say it now.
Strong sands, that's a hard one.
Strong sandstorms. Thank you. It's a bit of a tongue twister for
is.
me. The sandstorms have engulfed Iran's southern province. 자, 그 다음에 이 표현이 있습니다. eyesight issues.
Exactly as it sounds. I think anyone, have you ever had sand thrown in your face before?
Oh, yeah.
You can't see. So eyesight problems, vision problems.
Vision problems.
Difficulty seeing, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And when we just talk about how good your eyesight is, we use this term as well. You seem to have very good eyesight. I've never seen you wear glasses.
No, I don't wear glasses.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Well, as you know, I don't have very good eyesight. 그 시력 얘기할 때도 우리가 eyesight 얘기 많이 하죠.
When I first came to Korea, I couldn't believe how many people wore glasses here. And I thought if I was Korean, I would become an optometrist. What a great job.
It is a great job. Okay, eyesight issues는 여기서 안과 계통의 증세를 말합니다.
India is set to push its group of 20 partners at a meeting it is hosting to support its proposal to raise the share of taxes multinational companies pay to countries where they earn excess profits, according to Indian government officials.
네, 올해 주요 20개국 재무장관 회의를 주최하는 인도 정부가 다국적 기업의 초과 이익에 대한 세금을 높이자고 회원국들을 압박할 예정이라고 인도 정부 관계자가 전했습니다. Okay. When we talk about the share of something, share of taxes in this case, what are we referring to?
The amount you have to pay. So that's what they're saying here. India wants multinational companies to pay more taxes, a higher share.
Right, higher share. 납부해야 하는 비율을 말하고 있는 거네요. So share of taxes, 세금의 비율이 되겠고요.
Some other phrases you might hear is to do your fair share or to pay your fair share, which means do the amount of work you should do. You can also, there's another phrase, the lion's share of something. So if you were working on a project and you felt like you did 90% of the work and your partner only did 10%, that partner did not do their fair share and you did the lion's share of the work.
그렇죠. 같이 프로젝트를 하고 있는데 that's not fair at all, is it? I mean, if you're supposed to do 50-50 or at least, I don't know, 60-40, but then one person ends up doing the lion's share of the work,
right.
Then definitely it's not right. The other person did not do their fair share of the work. 네, 그래서 share라는 표현은 이렇게 다양하게 쓸 수 있고요. Excess profits.
Now, this just has to, it's not really a definition for this.
It's in quotation marks.
It's in quotations, yeah, so I don't think we should have chosen it as a term to talk about. I could talk about it in the story. I pretty much have to tell the story to explain what that means.
Let's just talk about excess then.
Excess means more than needed.
Yes, 그렇죠. 이 초과분을 excess라고 얘기를 합니다. We can actually think of extreme and excess in somewhat of a similar way in terms of it not being the normal average amount.
Yeah, okay, sure.
It's just more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Carlos Alcaraz has claimed victory at Wimbledon by taking down history's greatest Grand Slam player Novak Djokovic in 5 sets.
네, 카를로스 알카라스가 5세트 만에 최강 노바크 조코비치를 누르고 윈블던 테니스 대회에서 우승을 차지했습니다. Claim victory.
Claim victory means he won.
It's just another
It's just a fancy way to say he won the match.
Okay. So there are many fancy ways of saying one thing in
Right,
English.
right.
It's useful to know a lot of them, especially when you're writing, also when you're speaking as well. You don't want to repeat the same word over and over
again. I don't know if I would say claimed victory in conversation. Like, I had a hockey game last night and we claimed victory. I wouldn't say that.
But you would write it.
Maybe writing.
Okay.
Maybe writing because especially English speakers tend to write higher level than we speak.
Yeah. This was another thing that we pointed out yesterday, actually, is that press media, or print media and broadcast media use very different words and expressions.
They do, right.
So what we're doing right now is broadcast media. We tend to try and make it easier and more straightforward.
Right.
Yeah, but print media tends to be a little bit more fancy, longer,
and some
difficult.
outlets purposely use
그렇죠.
harder language,
맞아요.
more sophisticated language on purpose.
That's
a lot of
right.
times it's the journalists.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I know what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
그렇죠. 그래서 프린트 미디어, 인쇄 미디어하고 브로드카스트 미디어, 방송 미디어에서 쓰는 표현들과 그다음에 문장을 구성하는 방식 자체가 좀 많이 다릅니다. 보통 브로드카스트 미디어, 저희처럼 이렇게 말을 할 때는 비교적 쉽게 짧게 좀 가는 편이고 프린트 미디어는 뭐 긴 문장들, 좀 더 fancy한 표현들 많이 쓰죠. 우리는 둘 다를 이제 병행을 하고 있다 보니까 같이 보고 있어요. Claim victory는 그런 의미에서는 좀 프린트 미디어에도 많이 쓸 것 같습니다. Take down, what does that mean?
In this case, it means he beat him. He won, in this case. You could literally take someone down to the ground if you knocked them down.
Take someone down.
But in sports, if one team, and usually we use it when the underdog wins, because they took down the giant, they knocked them down, they were able to beat them.
Take someone down. And that's the case here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the giant being
Some
Djokovic.
books had Alcaraz as the favorite. He was actually a higher seed, but a lot of the betting books had Djokovic the favorite.
Oh, well, interesting.
Yeah, I found that interesting.
To take someone down, 끌어내리다 라는 뜻이 되겠습니다.
A report by the New York Times has suggested that South Korea will be the second oldest country in the world by 2050, while the top spot will be held by Hong Kong.
2050년이 되면 홍콩에 이어 한국이 세계에서 가장 고령화된 국가 2위를 차지할 것이라고 뉴욕 타임스가 보도했습니다. The first expression here is oldest country in the world.
That would mean have the oldest population.
Yeah.
By average, if you take the average age.
Yeah, that's right.
And
그러니까,
technically, Korea will be the oldest country because Hong Kong's not really a country. Yeah, so it's kind of one of those, right? It's a gray area.
It is a gray area. 여기서 말하는 oldest country라는 거는 이제 고령 인구가 가장 많은 그런 이제 세계 최고의 고령 국가가 된다라는 의미로 보시면 되겠고요. It's not talking about the history of the country. It's talking about the people and
The age
the
of the
demographics
people,
and
yes.
the age of the people.
The average age of the population.
That's right. 그다음에 top spot.
That's first place.
Yeah.
So I just looked up, I double checked the KBO standings.
Oh.
LG Twins, they're in the top spot right now.
아하, there you go. top spot 1위 자리를 말합니다.
A deal allowing the safe Black Sea export of Ukraine's grain for the past year has expired after Russia quit and warned it could not guarantee the safety of ships in a move the UN said would strike a blow to people in need everywhere.
러시아와 우크라이나의 전쟁 중에도 양국 농산물이 흑해를 통해 안전하게 수출될 수 있도록 한 흑해 곡물 협정이 1년 만에 종료됐습니다. 러시아는 협정에서 탈퇴하면서 배의 안전을 보장할 수 없다고 경고했으며 유엔은 구호를 필요로 하는 사람들이 타격을 입을 것이라고 말했습니다. The safe Black Sea export was guaranteed, now it isn't. What are we talking about?
We're talking about that corridor in the Black Sea that went from Turkey to 3 ports in Ukraine. And those waters, Russia's mined those waters. Cargo ships and merchant vessels need to be escorted. That's how it works now. And Russia is saying, we can't guarantee that anymore.
Exactly.
So are any ships going to travel in there? Now, the other big thing is insurance for these ships. So the insurance industry right now, everything is sort of up in the air with this at the moment.
And if exports of grain, if that's not guaranteed, then so many countries that need the grain right now, they'll be again in danger of a food crisis.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
그래요. Safe export of something이라는 것이 안전한 수출이라는 뜻이 되겠고요. Black Sea가 흑해가 되겠는데 you mentioned corridor. 원래는 복도라는 뜻이지만 어떤 통로라는 의미로 볼 수 있습니다.
Think of a pathway in the water.
Yeah.
A route.
Yes, exactly. Well, this deal has expired.
Yep, yeah, July 17th it expired. They've been renewing it. They renewed it, I think, 3 times.
Yeah.
When something expires, it runs out. A lot of times, like a license, for example, a driver's license or government ID cards, do those expire in Korea?
I don't.
For Waygukins, they do.
Okay.
So we have to our ID cards expire
Right.
every couple of years, and you have to renew them.
Right. Well, I know that my passport
Those
expired
expire.
during COVID.
Oh, no.
So I renewed it.
Okay.
Recently, but yeah, food can expire as well.
Yep, sure. People can expire.
People can expire.
That's a word we use when people die. Someone of old age, they expired.
아, 그래요. 이제 만료되다, 기한이 지나다라는 뜻으로 뭐 면허증 같은 것들이 이제 기한이 지났을 때 다시 갱신해야 될 때 쓸 수도 있고 아니면은 뭐 우리 마트 같은 데 가서 그 유통기한이나 사용기한 얘기할 때도 영어로는 이제 expiry date라고 얘기합니다. 사람한테도 쓸 수 있군요.
A series of wildfires in the U.S. state of California has forced hundreds to evacuate while firefighters battle through scorching heat waves to control the flames with both ground and air resources.
미국 캘리포니아주에서 산불이 연이어 발생해 수백 명이 대피한 가운데 소방대원들은 찌는 듯한 폭염 속에서 불길을 잡기 위해 사투를 벌이고 있습니다. 자, 폭염부터 볼까요? In English, scorching heat waves.
Scorching means when something is burnt, like you can scorch your food, right? Sometimes when I cook eggs, if I don't watch it, I can scorch the bottom of my omelet.
Slightly burning
Yeah,
it.
you can burn it. When something is scorched, it's really burnt, though.
It's not slightly, it's
no,
really
it's,
burnt.
Yeah, it's burnt,
Oh,
right?
I
Like you
see.
scorch, like in this case, right?
Right.
It is these heat waves. So
What else do you scorch in terms of food? Meat? Or
could, yeah, sure.
toast?
Yeah, I think you can
Okay.
use it for anything. It's just
Okay.
another word you can use for burning
burning.
something.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's black, right? It's
got it.
burnt.
Right.
And when you talk about it being a scorcher outside, it's so hot. So these heat waves are so hot. In the U.S. media, they would talk about heat or temperatures hitting triple digits, which for us we use Celsius.
Right.
It doesn't quite make sense for us, but in Riverside County, and where some of these fires were, in Fahrenheit, it hit 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which is nearly 40 degrees Celsius. So that's why they say triple digits.
파렌하이트로 이제 세 자릿수가 되면은 뭐 거의 40도에 가까운 찌는 듯한 그런 더위가 예상이 되고요. Scorching heat waves가 바로 그런 폭염을 묘사하고 있습니다. 타는 듯한 뭐 이런 더위라고 볼 수 있겠죠. Scorching. What about ground and air resources?
Resources are things you can use. So for firefighters, we're talking about trucks and hoses, and air resources, you've probably seen that, the airplanes that fly over and drop water from the air.
Ground, 지상, and air, 공중, resources는 지원이 되겠습니다.
Natural resources, right?
그렇죠.
Things we can use that we get from the ground.
뭐 자원 같은 경우에도 resources를 써서 natural resources 이렇게 얘기할 수 있고요. 그 다음에는 이제 사투를 벌이고 있다라는 표현은 battle through something 이렇게 표현을 하고 있는데
New Zealand golf icon and world number 3 Lydia Ko endured a disastrous start to her final round at the Dana Open when she was hit with a 7-stroke penalty for incorrect use of preferred lies.
뉴질랜드 골프의 아이콘이자 세계 랭킹 3위의 리디아 고가 LPGA 투어 다나 오픈 최종 라운드에서 preferred lie 규칙을 착각해 7벌타를 받으며 처참하게 라운드를 시작했습니다. It was a disastrous start.
Horrible.
Start.
It's a disaster. It was awful. Couldn't have gone worse for her. She didn't even shoot very well anyways. She was like par and bogey, I think. So, she didn't even do that well on some of these holes that she got penalties on regardless. And this sank. I just looked it up. She finished like 65th.
Oh dear. 그래요. Well, as you just said, Dana Open has since finished. 이제 Dana Open이 다 끝나긴 했습니다. 그래서 최종적으로 65위로 이제 마무리가 됐다고 하는데 시작이 참 좋지 않았어요. disaster라고 하면은 우리가 재앙이라고 참 많이 얘기를 하는데 disastrous 그러면은 처참하게 아주 나쁘게 안 좋게 이런 의미입니다. So it was a disastrous start.
Couldn't have gone any worse.
Exactly. The reason was because she incorrectly used what's called preferred lies. Now we're going to talk golf a little bit.
Yeah, this is the whole thing of this story. So preferred lies it's a rule. I had to look this up. I'm not much of a golfer. It's where a player can pick up their ball after it's come to a stop. They can pick it up, they can clean it, so if there's dirt on it, and they can move it just within 6 inches. Not closer to the hole,
right,
but to sort of either side or back, just like where the ball lies. It means maybe there's the grass is a bit long.
So I think it depends on the weather and the conditions.
Of the thing. Like it has to sort of be in the same condition, but they're allowed to move it just a little bit if it's better for them. They prefer to hit the ball from that spot. However, they do sometimes change this rule.
It doesn't always apply.
It doesn't always apply, and it only applies in certain areas of the course sometimes. So what was happening, they'd been using preferred lies all of Saturday, right? And then there was a 4-hour rain delay, so the course was all wet.
Right.
And then in the final round, the LPGA told the players that they would only be able to use preferred lies on the 1st and 10th holes.
Okay.
And Lydia didn't know this.
Oh, no.
She didn't have her normal caddy. So they are saying maybe that was one of the reasons. So she didn't know. So she had done preferred lies on the 3rd, 7th, and 9th holes. No one caught her.
Oh.
And then on the 11th hole, she had asked for some ruling, and then the officials realized, hey, what are you doing? And then they went back and so you've done it. You did it on the front 9, those 3 holes that she had moved the ball. So they were like, okay, those are 2-stroke penalties. On that 11th hole, she had only picked it up and then they realized you can't do this, so she put it right down in the
Exactly.
same spot.
Yep.
That's why she only got one stroke on that one.
preferred라는 단어 자체는 더 선호되는 이라는 의미가 있고요. lies가 이제 골프에서 말할 때는 그 공이 놓여진 위치를 말하는데 이게 늘상 할 수 있는 건 아니고 특정한 뭐 그런 조건 네, 해당될 때, 뭐 날씨 조건이라든지, 뭐 잔디의 조건이라든지 이럴 때 허용이 되는 공을 들어서 이제 hole에서는 떨어져 있어야겠지만 그 외에 반경 뭐 어느 정도 위치까지 그 안에서 공을 옮길 수 있는 이런 것을 이제 preferred lies라고 합니다. 이게 되는 줄 알고 안 됐는데 그래서 한 거죠. So she got a penalty. 7-stroke penalty.
When I read this and I preferred lies, I thought it was when someone tells you something really nice about you that's not true. Like, oh, Ray, you're so handsome and tall. Oh, thank you. Like, you know.
That's a preferred lie.
Yeah,
No,
that's a
no.
lie, but hey, I'll take it. I prefer that
That's
kind
a
of lie.
white lie. 네, 이 선의의 거짓말인 줄 아셨다. 처음에는 그럴 수 있죠. 뭐 골프를 모르면은 이 표현을 모르니까 선의의 거짓말은 white lie라고 합니다.
The world's biggest girl group, Blackpink, has garnered over 90 million subscribers on YouTube, cementing its position as the most followed musical act on the global video sharing service.
세계적인 걸그룹 블랙핑크가 공식 유튜브 채널 구독자 수 9천만 명을 돌파하면서 글로벌 영상 공유 서비스에서 가장 많은 구독자 수를 가진 그룹으로 자리매김했습니다. Well, Blackpink has garnered over 90 million subscribers.
Do we have to start calling it the K tidal wave now? Because like it's just
not even
it's
a wave.
No, it's not a
It's
wave.
a tidal wave.
Yeah, it's like taking over completely.
Yeah.
Garnered in this place means to get or receive.
네.
You can also use garner a lot to mean to collect or amass. I mean, if you garner votes,
Sure.
right? You collect all these votes. Amass them.
Collect, 모으다, 얻다, and to cement one's position.
Well, think about cement in general. What is cement, right? It's very strong. It's used to make buildings and sidewalks. So
Sure.
when we say it in this sense, when you use it as a verb, it means to make something strong and secure. It's obviously not easy to break cement.
Sure.
So it's going to be hard for them to be taken out of this top spot.
That's right.
They've really secured it and strengthened it.
시멘트처럼 이제 어떤 입지를 굳혔을 때 이게 딱딱한 정말 이렇게 깨기 힘든 그 시멘트라는 단어가 들어갔잖아요. 근데 동사로 쓰인 겁니다. Cement one's position. 자리매김하다가 되겠어요.
The minimum wage for next year has been set at 9,860 won per hour, up 2.5% from this year, in a decision reached after a record-setting deliberation period of 110 days.
내년도 최저임금이 올해보다 2.5% 높은 시급 9,860원으로 정해졌습니다. 이번 결정은 110일이라는 역대 최장 심의기일을 통해 나온 것입니다. All right, it's been set. Let's look at that expression first, right?
When you set something, so in this, there's lots of usages
Yeah.
for the word set, but in this case, think about if you were to set a goal, or if one of your friends or coworkers says, you know what, guess what, I'm getting married. You might say, have you set a date? So in that, it's the same usage here, means it's been chosen or selected,
Sure.
decided on.
Decided on. 결정됐다. It's been set. And what about deliberation period?
Deliberation is when you try and you deliberate. It's a group of people who are trying to come to an agreement. They're trying to come to a consensus. So where you'll hear this a lot is with juries. So the court case is finished, and then the jury has to be sequestered. They have to be
Yeah.
put into a room by themselves, and then they deliberate.
Right. They talk amongst
They talk amongst
themselves.
themselves, try and find common ground and come to an agreement.
Exactly. Coming to an agreement after this deliberation period. 여기서는 이제 심의 기간이나 수기 기간을 말하는데요. 110일이라는 최장 심의 기일을 통해 나온 결정입니다.
The Asian Development Bank has slashed its growth rate for the South Korean economy to 1.3% from its previous forecast, citing sluggish exports and investment.
아시아개발은행이 수출 감소 및 투자 부진을 이유로 한국 경제 성장률 전망치를 종전보다 낮은 1.3%로 제시했습니다. So compared to its previous forecast 3 months ago, this time they slashed their outlook.
They did. They
Yeah.
slashed it. They cut it. When you slash
Cut it.
something, you decrease it. Slash can mean to like cut something with
Yeah.
a knife
sword
or
or
a sword,
knife,
right?
yeah.
Or it's also the name of a great guitarist from the 80s.
Is it?
Yeah.
Slash. Sounds
Right.
cool, I guess.
Yeah, you don't know
as a
who it
music-
is?
No.
Really? Guns N'
Is it-
Roses?
Oh, I see.
The November Rain
Outside
video?
our writer,
or-
I'm sure she's
yeah,
going.
I can't believe I was just
How
checking.
does Sue not know Slash from
Right.
Guns N' Roses?
Right. I can't believe she didn't put a GNR song on the show for us today. Maybe she'll change that.
그랬군요. 네, 슬래시라는 이제 그 기타리스트도 뭐 있었다. 제가 몰라서 죄송합니다.
He had his hair always in front of his face and he wore a top hat.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, the meaning of slash itself
Yeah.
is 베다, 자르다, 뭐 이런 거니까 it's kind of, it sounds dangerous and cool, I guess.
Yeah.
그래요. 그런 의미가 되겠고 슬래시가 여기서는 이제 낮추다, 전망치를 낮춘다, cut랑 같은 의미가 되겠고요. What about sluggish?
Sluggish. In this slower. In this case, we're talking about exports and investment. So it was less than expected. It wasn't growing as fast as they hoped. So we could say it was slow.
Yeah.
You can also use sluggish for yourself. Like this morning, I'm not going to lie, I was feeling a bit sluggish.
Yeah, I think every morning a lot of people feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
You just feel in slow motion.
Yeah.
You're having a hard time getting yourself moving. So you could say, feeling a bit sluggish this morning.
Exactly. This happens to a lot of people. In fact, it happened to me this morning as well. I felt very sluggish.
By the end of the week, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you don't feel quite up to speed. Not up to speed, but, you don't feel as perky, I guess,
Yes.
or, awake.
Right.
And you sort of like, slow. 일어나야지.
Right. I feel like
Where's my
I
coffee?
gotta make my coffee. I'm in slow motion, pushing the button and everything. Yeah.
And that's being sluggish.
Right.
Okay, in this case, we're talking about the exports, economy.
Exports and investment in
slow.
particular, yeah.
그래요. 수출과 그다음에 투자, 부진이라는 의미로 느리다, sluggish하다라고 하고요.
An American soldier facing disciplinary action willfully and without authorization crossed the inter-Korean border into North Korea on Tuesday, raising cautious expectations for direct diplomatic re-engagement between Washington and Pyongyang.
지난 화요일 징계 처분을 앞둔 한 미군 병사가 고의로 허가 없이 남북한 접경지대를 넘어 월북하는 일이 발생했습니다. 이번 사건으로 미북 간 외교적 대화가 재개될 가능성이 조심스레 제기되고 있습니다. Okay, he was facing disciplinary action.
That means he was going to get punished. So he had been in trouble in Korea. He had assault charges. He was apparently detained. He was in jail here for around 2 months. Different reports are saying it was around 2 months. Then he was released, and then the American military was sending him back to the States,
Right.
where he was going to face disciplinary action, meaning they were going to look at what he did, and he would probably be punished stateside.
So he was based in South Korea,
Right.
and then he got into some sort of brawl.
He's been in a few different things.
he's been in many
he
brawls.
apparently he punched someone in a nightclub. He had an altercation with police and damaged a police car. So guys like this really just give American soldiers in Korea a bad name.
Yeah.
When, I know some that are really great guys.
Yes, and we're grateful, but people like this, I mean...
Just a donkey, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so he was to go back to America. He was facing disciplinary action. 징계 처분을 앞두고 있었습니다. 미국으로 다시 송환될 예정이었죠.
He was going to get in trouble.
He
so
was.
that's
Exactly.
the thing. So is this maybe why he decided to do this?
We'll find out in a
Yeah.
little bit. Well, I mean, we don't know for sure, but we'll find out the details of the story in a
Right.
little bit. Our next expression is direct diplomatic re-engagement between Washington and Pyongyang.
So this means restarting one-to-one communication between the U.S. and North Korea. Re-engage, when you engage with someone, you talk to them, communicate with them.
Yeah.
When you see the again. But when you read it this way, okay, they must not be talking now. Right? So they're going to, could they start communicating once again?
그렇죠. 북미 간의 대화가 재개가 될까? 하는 그런 건데요. 이 대화라는 말 대신에 engagement라는 표현이 나왔습니다. 다시 외교적인 대화를 한다라는 뜻으로 볼 수 있겠어요. direct, diplomatic, re-engagement에 대한 cautious expectations, 조심스럽게 이런 가능성이 지금 제기되고 있습니다.
Especially in this case, people are cautious because we don't really know what's going to happen because this guy went on
willfully.
his own volition.
That's the thing that
Right.
is different to other stories we've had in the past. You know, it's not like he was taken forcefully.
No.
He just
Ran.
crossed the border.
He's
and
lucky he didn't get shot. But
right.
it might be worse for him being there, actually. Who knows? The U.S. city of Phoenix has been subjected to temperatures of at least 43 degrees Celsius for the past 19 days, the longest stretch of time spent in such brutal heat as record-shattering heat waves continue to affect the U.S.
미국의 연일 기록적인 폭염이 이어지는 가운데 애리조나주 피닉스의 기온이 19일 연속으로 섭씨 43도를 웃돌아 역대 최장기간 폭염이 지속된 기록을 썼습니다. Phoenix has been subjected to very high temperatures.
It means they have been forced to endure that. They've been forced to deal with it. If you're subjected to something, you don't have any other choice. You have to deal with it. So we have no idea what Travis King is going to be subjected to in North Korea, but you could use it that way as well. He was subjected to torture and interrogation.
And there have been so many horror stories about people detained in North Korea.
Right, especially Americans.
Yeah, so you could be subjected to torture, as you
Sure.
said. 자, be subjected to something, 무언가를 당하다. 무언가를 이제 안 좋은 것을 받다. 뭔가의 대상이 되다라는 의미가 되는데요. 여기서는 피닉스라는 도시에서 굉장히 더운 기온 43도 이상의 이 폭염에 시달렸다 지금 19일 동안 이 얘기입니다. It's record shattering.
Yeah, these heat waves that are affecting all of the U.S. So a record is when it's the highest point, like a world record, for example. Think of the Olympics. Now, if a record is shattered, so the word shatter, right? So if you have a glass or a plate, you drop it on the ground on a hard floor, it's going to break into hundreds of pieces.
Yeah.
It shatters. So if you shatter a record, you destroy that record. You beat it by a lot.
And you can actually say destroying a record as well,
usually
right?
people say shattered the record. I don't know. It's just a term.
Yeah.
Like you break the record. So it was 19 days, right? That they've had this heat. The previous record was 18 days. That was back in 1974. I think that was probably before they talked about climate change on multiple times a day on every news station.
Sure.
But still, so 18. There was this record heat in the 70s happened. Now it's 19 days, so it's only one day. It broke the record, but I wouldn't say it shattered the record.
I see.
If this goes on for 30 days, I'll say it shattered the record.
아하, 그랬군요. 이 shatter라는 것은 유리가 산산조각 나면서 깨질 때 많이 쓰는 표현이긴 해요. 그래서 깨다의 의미인데 우리도 기록을 깨다 하듯이 영어로도 break a record, shatter a record 이렇게 표현할 수 있습니다.
Bayern Munich have signed Korean center back Kim Min-jae from Serie A champions Napoli to a 5-year deal, reportedly paying a release clause worth 50 million euros for the player.
독일 프로축구팀 바이에른 뮌헨이 이탈리아 세리에 A 리그에서 뛰던 한국의 김민재 선수와 5년 계약을 맺었습니다. 뮌헨 측은 이번 영입에 5천만 유로, 우리 돈으로 약 715억 원의 이적료를 지불한 것으로 알려졌습니다. It's a 5-year deal.
5-year contract. Yeah, you'll see this all the time in sports news.
Yeah.
He signed a 4-year, $40 million deal. Deal meaning agreement.
5년 계약, a 5-year deal, same as contract. And a release clause.
So in football, this release clause, release obviously means to let something go, and a clause is a condition in a contract. So these release clauses, they also call them buyout clauses.
Yep.
So what it does is it's a fee that is set. It's in the player's contract. And for Min-jae's contract, there was a 15-day window from July 1st to July 15th, where if another club is willing to pay this amount, it was 50 million euros, 43 million pounds, then the club has to let him go.
Right.
They don't have the choice. And then it's between Min Jae in any team, he can make his contract with them. So United was interested.
Yeah,
there was
Man U,
some other
yeah,
teams, and
yeah.
then Bayern Munich got involved, and he really seemed that that's where he was
Everyone
set to
wanted
go.
him,
Now,
yeah.
the thing with this is Napoli really, like, you know, they got 50 million euros for him, right? But at the time when because they only got him, he only played on Napoli one season. So when they got him, he had a breakout season last year. So he helped them win the Serie A title. He was named the best defender in the Serie A. And Serie A is the top flight league in Italy.
Yep.
It's one of the top 4 leagues in the world. So he had this breakout season. Had this buyout contract, the release clause, not been in his contract and other teams wanted him, they probably would have had to pay a lot more for him now.
Yeah.
So
I read in some articles saying this is relatively cheap.
it's a pretty good deal,
It's a good deal.
for Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich has also been linked to Harry Kane. But there was some cold water thrown on that
Right.
by Tottenham. But Min Jae joins the best Canadian player in the world, Alphonso Davies, in the Bundesliga. So I'll be watching some of these games this year. I'm a big fan of Kim Min Jae.
네. 이정료 얘기를 하다 보니까 뭐 굉장히 많은 얘기가 나왔는데 이 release clause라는 것 자체가 이제 그 이정료를 얘기하고 있는 겁니다. buyout clause라고 얘기하기도 하고요. 그거를 다 지불하고 그다음에 이제 Bayern Munich가 they sort of bought Kim Min Jae.
That's what they use that phrase in football. You buy players.
Exactly.
In North America, we tend to say to sign players because you're not paying the player's former club. In football, you pay the club. Clubs pay each club and then they set the contract with the player.
Exactly. 뭐 signed를 쓰든 아니면은 they bought the player 이렇게 쓰든 어쨌든 이제 이렇게 확정이 됐습니다.
The number of US tourists to Korea this year is expected to return to pre-pandemic levels, according to the Korea Tourism Organization.
올해 한국을 찾는 미국인 관광객 수가 팬데믹 이전 수준을 회복할 것으로 한국관광공사가 전망했습니다. First expression, expected to return.
Yes, here if we are expecting something, we think it's going to happen. That's our prediction, our forecast, our guess or guesstimate perhaps. We think it's likely to happen. And return to means to go back to what it was before.
Right.
In this case, we're talking about number of tourists going back to, the levels that we had back in 2019.
Yes. 무엇으로 돌아갈 것으로 전망된다. Expected to return to something. And that something is pre-pandemic levels.
Yes, if we have the prefix, pre, P-R-E, it's always going to mean before.
Yeah.
So pre-pandemic means before the pandemic, which, as I mentioned before, 2019, 4 years ago.
I know. And the prefix to mean after is post.
Oh, it is indeed. I had a brain freeze then. I had a moment going, what is the prefix there? Yes,
We all
post.
have those moments.
Yes,
Yeah,
post-pandemic, pre-pandemic. Are we post-pandemic? I think some people would say yes. Some people might say no. Certainly, we're over the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-something. Pre-pandemic levels는 팬데믹 이전 수준을 말합니다.
A shooting in New Zealand's largest city, Auckland, left 2 people dead and 6 others wounded on Thursday, hours before the city opened the FIFA Women's World Cup.
2023 FIFA 여자 월드컵 개막을 불과 몇 시간 앞두고 뉴질랜드 오클랜드에서 어제 총격 사건이 발생해 2명이 숨지고 6명이 다쳤습니다. First expression, wounded.
Yes, if you're wounded, it means you're hurt. You're injured. However, when we use the term wounded, I think it will be, one, more serious than injured. You get the sense that you're going to have to go to hospital if you're wounded.
Okay.
If you fall over, you might injure yourself, but you don't wound yourself. Wounding suggests that's more damage, and we often refer to it where there's been some big accident or there's been a shooting like this or something where, life is in danger. It's often associated with weapons, for example. So we don't talk about injured soldiers so much as wounded soldiers.
Interesting. But with this story, though, you'll find that wounded and injured are used interchangeably in a lot of headlines from different media outlets.
Yes.
So here we could use them as the same. but I guess there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah, and when it comes to a shooting like this, I think you're more likely to see wounded than injured.
Okay. 자, 그래요. 부상당했다, 다쳤다라는 의미입니다. 발음이 중요하죠. wounded 아니고요. wounded.
Yes.
이렇게 발음을 합니다. This is not an easy one for English learners to pronounce. 그 W하고 O 발음이 쉽지 않거든요.
Yeah, because we don't use that woo sound.
Yeah.
We have w and wa, but we don't have woo.
그래요. 그러니까 우리 왜 할 때랑 좀 비슷한 건데 왜 대신에 woo로 가는 거죠.
Yeah.
wounded. 자, 그다음에 open the World Cup. This,
Yeah, it means they started it. It started last night. Congratulations to New Zealand, 1-0 to them against Norway, and congratulations to Australia, 1-0 to them against Ireland. So the Antipodes have started off the Women's World Cup very, very well.
That's right. open이 여기서는 이게 개막하다의 의미로 쓰였습니다.
And can I give a bit of advice to shopkeepers, store
Yes,
owners?
yes.
If you're opening a new store, when you're printing your sign, please write grand opening, not grand open. I see grand open a lot here in Korea, and it is not the correct expression in English. It's grand opening.
ing, yes.
A rare combination of extremely high temperatures and atmospheric humidity has created a staggering heat index of 66.7 degrees Celsius in Iran, a temperature level deemed unsafe for humans.
극도로 높은 기온과 대기 중의 습도가 만나 이란의 체감 온도가 사람의 생명을 위협할 정도인 섭씨 66.7도 정도까지 치솟았습니다. 아이고. 네, atmospheric humidity부터 좀 볼게요.
We talked about vibes. Synonym is atmosphere, but it's a different meaning of atmosphere here. Atmosphere meaning the air, meaning the air around us, the air that surrounds the earth. That is the atmosphere. So something to do with the atmosphere is atmospheric, and humidity is the level of moisture.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the level of moisture in the air.
When it's humid, you start to sweat, it's all sticky everywhere, and generally you don't feel good.
Yes, and I'm sad to say that Korea has very humid summers.
그렇습니다. 굉장히 습한 여름 우리나라가 있죠. Some countries are actually hot but not humid.
Yes, Australia, for example.
Yeah.
I was surprised when I went there because it was similar temperatures to Korean summer, even though it was winter in Brisbane.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel as hot because
That's right.
when you were in the shade, you were cool. It was only when you were in direct sunlight that you felt the heat.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like sometimes when the humidity level goes up, it's just more unpleasant. It feels
Yes.
that way. And then same vice versa. When it's less humid and almost dry, it feels a little more pleasant. 자, 대기 중의 습도, atmospheric humidity가 있었고요. That has made the heat index go up to over 66 degrees in Iran.
Yes, so the heat index is different to the actual temperature. The heat index is how it feels for us. And this is taking the actual temperature and the level of humidity, and by combining that, we get this heat index. The term that I'm used to, and when I look at my weather app, is the real feel. It's called sometimes where it may only be 28 degrees, but it feels like it's 34.
Yeah, exactly. 체감 온도입니다. heat index라고 표현을 했는데요. 실제 temperature와는 다르죠. It could be a certain temperature, but it may feel way hotter than that. The real feel, or the heat index.
Large swaths of southern Europe continue to swelter in record heat as wildfires rage across Greece, including one that led to the evacuation of 1,200 children from a summer camp.
남부 유럽의 폭염이 지속되고 있는 가운데 그리스에서 산불이 발생해 여름방학을 맞아 캠프에 참가한 어린이 1,200명이 긴급히 대피했습니다. Large swaths of southern Europe?
Yeah, large areas. A swath is going to be a wide area of land, for
Right.
example. Yes. So here we're talking about not just little small areas. We're talking about wide areas of Europe.
Swaths. S-W-A-T-H-E-S. 넓은 범위의 땅을 말하는데요. 유럽 남부의 많은 부분이, 많은 지역이 이렇게 해석을 할 수 있겠고 여기서는 SW로 시작하는 표현이 두 개나 있어서 둘 다 보도록 하겠습니다. 방금 본 swath뿐만 아니라 there's also swelter.
Yes, and if you swelter, you're sweltering, you are really uncomfortably hot. It's just too hot. Now, I'm going to give you my definition, which is not the correct definition, but it works for me.
Okay.
When I think of swelter, I think of two words combined. One is sweat and one is wilt.
Oh.
Because when it's too hot, you feel like you're going to just wilt. You're going to collapse and you're going to sweat. So swelter for me, I think of sweating and wilting.
Okay, that's the image that Paul has. Sweating, 땀 흘리다, wilt, 시들다. 이런 이미지를 가지고 이 단어를 외웠다고 합니다. 우리도 참고해 보도록 할게요.
네.
Swelter, 이제 무더위에 시달린다는 뜻이 되겠습니다.
A Korean research team has developed the world's first humanoid pilot, capable of sitting in a cockpit and taking direct control of an aircraft.
국내 연구진이 세계 최초로 항공기 조종석에 앉아 항공기를 직접 조종할 수 있는 파일럿 로봇을 개발했습니다. Wow, this is a humanoid robot.
Yes, meaning it looks like a human.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Avatar?
No,
Okay, were you familiar with Avatar?
a little bit.
The Na'vi, those aliens, they're humanoid. They look like humans, but they're blue and very tall.
Exactly.
So we use humanoid to refer to a robot or even an alien
Yeah.
that looks human.
I have a robot in my house.
Do you? Is it a humanoid robot?
No, it is not.
Okay.
로봇 청소기가 있거든요.
Yes.
It is not a humanoid robot, though. It's just round and flat.
So more of a discoid.
예. 그렇죠. 이제 로봇도 나름이잖아요. 근데 사람처럼 생긴 로봇은 humanoid라고 표현을 합니다. Mine at home is not. But maybe in the future we will have humanoid cleaning robots. Who knows?
Perhaps.
Maybe. Okay. 그 다음에는 take direct control of something.
Yeah, if you take direct control of something, you're doing it yourself. For example, Sue and I do not have direct control of this show. Outside, we have our fantastic engineer and producer
Yeah.
who are pressing the buttons and checking the levels. We're just in front of the mics. We can't cue the song. We have to say, let's play the song, and they press the button. They are in direct control. We are not. In this case, this robot will literally sit in the seat of the aircraft,
Right.
put its humanoid hands on the sticks, and will fly the craft.
그렇죠. 직접적으로 조정을 한다라는 의미의 have direct control or take direct control이라고 하는 건데요. This robot is going to do that.
Yes.
It's amazing.